Good afternoon and welcome to the 220th episode of the Georgia Farm Bureau Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. Today we're going to be joined by Lincoln County head football coach Lee Chomskis. He was at the Masters this past weekend. We talked a little bit about the Red Devils on Friday, but now we'll get to hear directly from him. I'm also going to go over the Corky Kell 7-on-7 field. We've got some recruiting news to talk about and some spring sports updates. But let's go ahead and get started with Coach Chomskis. Hey, Coach, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well. How about you?
Doing great. So, yeah, talk about this past weekend. You were at the Masters. That's obviously not too far from Lincoln County. So, was this one of the first years you decided to work the event?
No, Augusta's my home, and that's where I grew up, and I grew up around the tournament. It's always been real big at our family. But I work for a corporate group, Newell Rubbermaid, and have been doing that for 25 years. So I'm just a chauffeur and a butler for a week. It's a great opportunity to serve, but it's also a pretty good supplement to my income.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about that. I've been to the Masters, but that was probably when I was like 7 or 8. It just seems like the event is really unique in just how it's run, the organization. What is it like just in terms of that event specifically?
Well, it's absolutely incredible. Everything about it is first class. The grounds themselves are just, they speak for themselves. Blade of, there's not a weed in the surface anywhere. And everything's in place. They had pines to come down during the week. And I mean, if you went back the next day, you never even knew that had occurred. They're just incredible and so efficient in what they do. We're lucky to have that tournament in Augusta.
Oh, for sure. And so you were there the whole week?
I was there the whole week. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, I was just looking at Twitter. I saw a bunch of football coaches that were out there. I think Callaway, they had their staff out there. We talked to Coach Kraft, North Forsyth. He took his son there. So did you notice that? Obviously, you're from Augusta, but you see some familiar faces out there?
Oh, you always see a lot of familiar faces, but the Augusta National, it creates an incredible opportunity for all of those in the CSRA and around that are out of school during that time for spring break. And most folks around Augusta, most school systems, time it where their folks are free because it's a financial opportunity. Many coaches drive for different companies, and many of our kids work inside the gates, picking up trash and working on the scoreboards and working in the concession stands. So it creates an opportunity for everybody to, gain a little revenue during the week. It's quite nice for everybody involved.
Absolutely. And I think objectively, the Masters logo is the best logo of all time. That flag planted
Well,
right in Augusta. Yeah, that's
no,
awesome. But yeah, let's talk a little bit more about just the geographical location of Lincoln County. You guys are right on the border, close to Augusta. You play those area teams, but what is it about Lincoln County, just the history, um, how much football means to them, and just the pride around that program and community?
well, Lincoln County's had a long history, a long storied history of successful football. It started back with Buddy Bufford, and then it went to Thomas Bunch. And then, of course, everyone knows about Larry Campbell and the legacy that he left here at Lincolnton. And I think all three men would tell you that this place has a lot of athletes, a lot of kids that are very good at playing the game. It's an important game in our town and our community, um, maybe to a fault at sometimes. It's something that everyone in the community is serious about, and they have high expectations and high standards, and that's fun to be a part of something like that.
Yeah, it's so important. When we look at the state of Georgia, the Atlanta schools get a lot of attention. We obviously have 7 classifications, but I pointed out on Friday, whenever there's these big debates going on with the GHSA, advocating for the smaller schools, trying to make sure that the playing field's as level as possible, it seems like Lincoln County has been that school that has represented kind of the lower classifications and been a big difference maker. So what is it about Lincoln County kind of leading the charge in that sense?
Well, I don't know that we lead the charge like that anymore. I attribute that to Larry Campbell and his legacy and his dominance in the state. And he certainly has an incredible voice. And when Larry spoke, people would listen, and his opinion was valued. And he certainly was an advocate for the small school. He stood strong and stood tall there at the GHSA in many meetings, trying to find a way to keep Class A in a place where they have an opportunity to compete, where it's on a fair and balanced playing field. And so I attribute that to Larry more than I do any of it.
Yeah, and last year was the first year of the Class A Division II. I thought all the state championship games were incredible. We saw Bowden, Schley County. Schley County's the smallest school in the state. But what's the current enrollment at Lincoln County?
Right now we have 340, 345 kids in our hallways, 9 through 12. When I coached here as an assistant back in 2005 and 6, I think we had around 420. So we're smaller than we were then. But it's a great place. It's a great group, and that's a good number. My concern about the coming year is they're going to do realignment. That's going to happen at the end of this season, or at the end of this next school year. They're going to begin to look at realigning. And, you know, the lower Class A is really, if you look at the schools, is the old Class A. Upper Class A is the old Double A. And then Double A is really the old Triple A. You just go back and look at the schools that are in each one of those classifications, and then go back and flip the history books back, and that's where we were. So I really applaud how we've divided this up, but I'm hearing that we're going to get rid of 7A, and all that does is it's going to be a trickle-down effect. It's going to send some larger schools down to the next level, and it'll just keep coming all the way back down to us. And, you know, when you only have 340 kids, you know, let's think about a Trutland County or a Wheeler County, some little small school like that, Portal. Their chances of competing are gone when you start popping folks down in there close to 500 students in the school. It's just hard to compete. So I'm hoping that the GHSA will keep the small school in mind when they make these decisions. And they're tough decisions. They're not going to make everybody happy, that's for sure. But I hope that they certainly will make sure that they look out for the small school.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I do think just Class A Division II, I knew it would open up opportunities for schools like Bowden. They win their first title in a long time, had an incredible team. You guys played them. A great offensive line. Coach Finley does a phenomenal job. But, I mean, you guys were right in the conversation last year. You challenged yourselves in non-region. You have a great region, returning a lot of players. I've seen some of the numbers in the weight room you guys have been putting up. Just how confident are you guys this year to compete in this Class A Division II?
Well, I think we can be competitive. Now, we lost some fine seniors, and we certainly have to replace an incredible quarterback. And Trey Huff was someone that it's very difficult to replace. I don't know that you can, because he's a 4.0 student. He's a coach's son. He is an incredible competitor, and he's also a very, very talented athlete. So we'll have a young sophomore and a couple other kids that are competing for that job. And they're all athletic and talented, but what Trey brought to the table was really over the top, and we'll have a hard time replacing him. We're going to be young up front. We're going to have some inexperience up there, and we're just going to have to grow, but we have a scrimmage and 5 non-region games to get those kids ready and help them get better and improve before we get into a region schedule. So, you know, I'm hoping that we can stay healthy and we can grow and mature, and by the time we get into the region, maybe we'll have a pretty good football team.
Yeah, and I think I read somewhere when you first took the head coaching job, the roster was pretty thin. Might have been like 25, 27 players. So how have you guys just tried to build up the youth participation? I know we had one of your freshmen in our Georgia Elite games this past January, but just getting these young guys experience so that roster size can grow.
Well, we had 25 our first year, and but COVID was a part of that year, so I
That's
think
right.
everybody suffered and struggled there. But my very first practice, I walked out on the field. We only had 14 there, and it was very humbling, very scary to sit there and think about how are you going to build something with 14 kids. But we were able to grow it to 25. We've had a couple of classes that were very small graduate since I've been here, and now we have some younger classes coming in that are a little more heavily populated. So we're increasing the number in the school, which is helping us increase the number that on our team. We also had our first JV season this year. First year we didn't have enough to have one. The second year we didn't have enough linemen to have one. So last year our JV played 7 games, and that's monumental in developing kids and keeping folks interested in building your numbers. So that was a big plus for us. I'm excited about that, and I think that we'll be able to have a field a JV team again this year with a full schedule. So those are the things that are happening for us to be able to build our numbers and build some excitement and get folks involved in football.
Yeah, and you talked about Mekhi Wade. I think that's who you were referring to at the quarterback spot. I mean, he picked up significant yards on the ground last year. Obviously, Samaje Jenkins is the big-time playmaker returning, but what have you seen from him just in terms of these 7-on-7s, just trying to get ready for this big role?
Well, Samaj Jenkins, one, is definitely going to have to be our guy next year. And that's not just on the playing field. He's going to have to step up and be that guy in the locker room and in the hallways, in our weight room. And if he sets the standard high and if he holds his teammates accountable, we have a chance to be okay. But if he doesn't take that role, we're going to struggle. We have a very small senior class, and he's that guy. So I'm hoping that he'll take that baton and run with it. The one that Trey and also Brown, one of our seniors from last year, I'm hoping he'll pick that thing up and run. Mekhi Wade played a great deal this year as a freshman. He didn't even take a JV snap. He played wingback for us a great deal on Friday nights, and he's a very talented runner. He's developing into a good passer, but he's just going to be a 10th grader. And I'm not a big 7-on-7 guy. We don't do a lot of 7-on-7s. We do have some folks in town that are doing that, and some of our kids are participating in it, and that's better than them sitting at home. I certainly support that and applaud what they're doing, but I think our kids, when it's off season, they ought to be playing baseball and basketball and running track for our school instead of AAU and all these other things that go on. I don't know that I have a lot of people that agree with me on that, but I love to see our kids compete in other sports and build our programs with our athletes here in Lincolnton. So, anyway, I feel excited about Mekhi. He's a great athlete. He's a good student. He's just got a lot in front of him, and we're going to try to help him grow.
And then talk a little bit about just the role Trey Huff played last year. I mean, obviously quarterback, but it looked like he was a key part of the defense also. So kind of what's the secondary looking like, and who are you looking to step up?
Well, Trey was a big part of our defense. He played free safety, so he was our quarterback on defense as well. He got folks lined up in the secondary. We could be a little more complicated back there because we knew Trey was like a coach on the field. He was probably one of our best tacklers. He was the second leading tackler on our team behind our sophomore linebacker. But Trey is going to be very hard to replace. But we do have some athletes. We have a very athletic freshman class, and we have a very athletic 8th grade class this year. So those kids coming into their 10th grade and 9th grade year are going to have to fill those spots, and we've got a good number that we're high on and we're excited about. They're working hard in the weight room, and they're getting themselves prepared to be able to compete on a Friday night level, and I'm excited just to see where it'll go.
And then what have you seen just physically in the weight room so far? Looking at your Twitter account, looks like Entravius Turner, a 370 bench. That's really impressive. Kelby Glaze, 290 power clean. It looks like they're kind of looking at this opportunity to try to pack on as much strength as possible before this thing kicks off.
Well, first, Coach Doug Huff, who's our defensive coordinator, He runs our weight room and does an incredible job, and we have made great strides in the weight room over the last 2 years. Really seen a lot of growth, but a lot of discipline too. I think we're getting mentally tougher just because of the grind that we have to go through. And Coach Huff doesn't cut any corners. So our kids know when they show up every day, Monday through Friday at school, that when they come to that weight room, it's all business and they better be ready to work. And I give Coach Huff all the credit for that. And Travius Turner, he is 6'5". You know, he's 290 pounds. But last year was the first time he ever played high school football. He started as a junior, but he had a lot of struggles. He was a part of our team when he was a freshman and didn't play, didn't have a JV season, and wasn't good enough to get on the field at that time. And then last year he missed the entire season. So this year was his first time. But there's a lot of folks that ought to get their eyes on him. And Travius, he's a special young man, and very big, very physical, and a very tough kid. Kelby Glaze, you mentioned him. He's just a ninth grader, but he's incredibly strong. And we have many ninth graders that are really making strides in that weight room as well. So we're excited about what we're doing, and I don't think we're doing anything different than most. Everybody's working in the weight room right now. Mm-hmm. We may need to cut our Twitter account off. I don't know if we need to be getting all that stuff out there. So, but anyway, we're excited about that, and we're very pleased with what Coach Huff is doing.
Nice. Well, I was impressed. I think 290 for a power clean with that form as a freshman, that's a big deal. I mean, he's on a good track to potentially be a 315, and then once you're lifting that heavy, you can just really pack it on. Let's talk a little bit about your region, though. Region 8, historically, a lot of familiarity with these schools, some rivalry games. You guys were able to take it last year, but there were some really competitive games. So what's your overall just view of what this region is going to look like this year?
I think it's a very tough region. You know, it's a group this year. Everybody has folks coming back except really us. We're really young. So Greene County returned most of their football team for this coming season. Washington Wilkes was really young, had very few seniors on their team. Aquinas, they lost some guys up front, but they have some good-looking kids coming, and they have a linebacking core, and their quarterback position is really deep and really, really talented. Warren County was very young this year, and they do such a great job in the wing tee, and they're just a well-coached bunch and get after it, and they always have athletes in Warrenton, just as Greene and Washington Wilkes do too. So with that said, we're sitting at the 4 spot going in here, maybe 5, having to fight to get in. We'll just see what happens. But there's some talented teams in our region, and I feel like most of those guys have got pretty good depth, and they'll bring some experience because they were, again, all very young last year.
Yeah, certainly. So you guys won the region, but then Greene County, Washington Wilkes, Aquinas, they were in a 3-way tie situation where everyone's kind of beating up on each other. And then just if you look at it, Kevin Wynn, a sophomore from Greene County, he's returning. He was Defensive Player of the Year. So I think that's another thing I noticed just last season in Class A Division II, some really outstanding athletes just coming out of it, whether it was the young linebacker from Schley County. So a lot of really talented high school football players in this classification.
I certainly agree. At the Wynn kid, he's phenomenal, and I think Georgia's already made an offer, or at least they're visiting him on a regular basis. But he's phenomenal, but he's not the only one in our region that has talent. Washington Wilkes has a lot of kids. Look like clones. They're all about 6'2", 240 pounds, 230 pounds, and they just play very hard, especially when they play the Red Devils. They play very hard.
And then one last question. So you're going to play McCormick. That's the one out-of-state school. I know a lot of your players participate in that Border Bowl after the season. So what's that been like, just playing those out-of-state games? Kind of what connections have you made just across the border with some of these programs?
Well, I don't have a lot of connections over there, not nearly as much as Coach Campbell had. Coach Campbell was from Abbeville, and had a lot of ties in Carolina and a lot of folks over there. Great deal of respect for Coach Campbell. But McCormick is 15 miles from our home, and it's an easy road trip for us. It's an easy road trip for them, and it's usually a pretty good gate. So it's kind of a no-brainer for us to play that early in the year. I think either one of us can make a little bit of money, and you don't have to travel a long distance either, so it doesn't put you in a bind there. But the rest of our non-region schedule is all Georgia-based, and we've got some very tough opponents. ECI, we've got Richmond Academy, we play Commerce. We've got some tough folks that we're going to have to face, and hopefully from now until August we'll be getting ready for that task.
Yeah, for sure. A great overall schedule. For us Atlanta guys, though, just want to ask again. So Lincoln County, just looking at the map, you're close to Augusta. You got all these beautiful lakes around you. So what is kind of some of your favorite areas just over there in Lincoln County to enjoy during the summer, get out and see?
Well, the things that we love around here the most are certainly the access to the lake, and my wife and I have built a home about 2 miles from that lake, and it's beautiful just to even ride up and see, much less get on. And I have several friends that have a boat. I keep it that way. I don't want a boat, but I have a lot of friends that do, and so we get to have an opportunity to go on the lake and enjoy it. There are golf courses everywhere around here. We have a local golf course. And then there's several over there across in Carolina, over in McCormick. So we love to do that and get out and play and compete. But it's a wonderful town. It's a small town. It's about the same type town it was when I was a little kid living here and going to first grade. Hadn't changed a whole lot at all. And you can't say that about most places. When I grew up in Augusta, as we moved away from Lincolnton, I was in Augusta, and Augusta's changed dramatically since I was a boy. But you come back to Lincoln, and it's really about the same place. And it's really neat. It's a great place to raise kids. And for us, our kids are already up and gone, but I have a granddaughter here, and I'm excited that she's able to be in Lincoln County.
For sure, yeah. We were covering the bass fishing state championships last year, and I was just looking at some of the scenes from those lakes around there. I was a little jealous. It was absolutely beautiful. But are you guys on spring break right now?
No, sir. We went back to school today. We were on spring
Okay.
break during the match. So
Awesome.
we're back at it, going full speed.
And then one last question. Who are you guys going to try to scrimmage before the season?
We will scrimmage Cross Creek High School, which is over in Augusta, and
Yep.
they'll come to us. We played them last year, and they were in a tough spot. They had lost their coach and didn't find a new one until probably 2 weeks before the season. So this year I look for them to be a little bit more organized and a little bit better. They've gone through a season together and an off season too. So should be a good warm-up, tune-up for us.
Awesome. Well, Coach Chomskis, thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck. And if I can't find out what you guys are up to on your Twitter account, I'll invite you back on before the season.
I'll cut it off so I can come back.
Yep, dark mode. All right. Well, thank you so much. Go Red Devils.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right. So there you have it. I was looking at them last season. I thought they were top 5 team, top 3. The lone loss was the lone loss within Class A Division II was to Bowden, the eventual state champs that were absolutely tremendous last season. But yeah, their region was very talented. Talked about that 3-way tie. Greene County ended up getting the number 2 seed. All of them finished 3-2 in the region. Washington Wilkes and Aquinas were the 3 and 4, and they all finished with 7-3 records. I think in terms of who they've played historically the most, those are big rivalry games. The Aquinas one was extremely close last year, 28-24. And that was a good contrast of styles. Aquinas comes out there, they have a great passing attack, and Lincoln County with Trey Huff at quarterback and Samaj Jenkins in that athlete running back role were able to win. I think they came out early and scored on their first 4 drives and then held on. I was looking at one other thing. Yeah, the only other big player that's going to need to be replaced Washington Wilkes. They had one of their best seasons ever last year, 7-3, and they're going to lose their senior quarterback, Desmond Kofer. He was tremendous. He was the offensive player of the year for the region. But as Coach Chomsky said, their team looks like a clone, and they have all those playmakers returning. So let's go ahead. We'll take a quick break and thank our sponsors, Georgia Farm Bureau, and we'll be back on the other side.
Our mission has always been to support Georgia farmers. That's why we created Georgia Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, providing financial protection that farmers needed. While this remains the same today, we've grown to protect all Georgians through home, auto, and life insurance. From the very beginning and into the future, we stand for every Georgia community.
We are a Farm Bureau.
All right, welcome back. So I'm going to talk about the Corky Kell 7-on-7. It is in about 2 months. It's going to start June 13th. That's a Tuesday. Then it will be Wednesday, June 14th. And then the third and final day is the following Tuesday, Tuesday, June 20th. And it is a pure takeover of Georgia Tech. We were kind of wondering, all right, how many practice fields do they have? And it looks like we're going to be using Bobby Dodd, the Georgia Tech practice facilities, and then they have a great rec center downtown on campus, and we're taking over some of those fields as well. So let's look at the teams that are going to be competing. And the way this is going to work, each day is going to be its own tournament, so there will be 3 champions. You look at the last 9 years of the Corky Kell 7-on-7, the teams that win tend to go very far. We had Colquitt County win back-to-back. Archer won. That was the year I think they made it to the semis. We had Marietta win 2 times. They won the state title that season with Harrison Bailey. And then last year, Creekside won, and they came very close to taking the whole thing in 5A last year. But on Tuesday, the teams that are going to be participating, we got Jackson, Atlanta, Pope, Carver, Atlanta, Christian Heritage, Veterans, and Miller Grove. Miller Grove was in a pretty intriguing region last year in Class 4A with Holy Innocent, Southwest DeKalb, Stevenson. So I'm interested to see what they have. They had a chance of making the playoffs, but had a couple close losses, I think, potentially on like a 2-point conversion. Then check out this group of teams. The pods are subject to change, but day 1, Lambert, Cedar Grove, Marietta, Peachtree Ridge, Johns Creek, and Carver Columbus. That's a tremendous group right there. Lambert was a team that made a ton of noise last year in 7A. They were undefeated until late on, played a tremendous schedule, and just had close win after close win. They just had that magic winning ability last year. All right, the third one, this is going to be on the practice fields. Central Gwinnett, Carrollton, Juju Lewis, North Forsyth. See what they look like. They're replacing their quarterback. Archer, Meadow Creek, and Centennial. That will be a great group right there. Then in the indoor facilities that I've heard great things about, and I'm sure they will appreciate that. It's going to be hot as heck. But Cherokee Bluff, Wheeler. Wheeler's coming off a really good season. North Atlanta, North Cobb, Cartersville, and Duluth. And then at Bobby Dodd to start things off, ELCA, Greater Atlanta Christian, Douglas County. That will be fun to watch. Shire Hardaway has been healthy this summer. He's got an elite 7-on-7 that he's been participating in. Dwight Phillips Jr. is on that team, the fastest player in the country. So definitely we will want to see what Douglas County is able to do in terms of making noise in this tournament. Calvary Day, a great Class 3A team that made it all the way to the semis last year, Monroe area, and then Southwest DeKalb. That is day 1. What a group. All right, let's go to day 2. Cass, another team that I can't wait to see in the Corky Kell. They've got some preparation to do as they get ready to open their season against Rome. Some of the first games played in the States. Cass, Savannah Christian, Cherokee. They were super young last year. I think they're going to have a much better season. Walton, Alexander, and Chapel Hill. And it looks like Walton is one of the few teams where they're going to have two different groups, kind of like an A and a B group. I don't know who the backup is to Hecklinski. Can't remember from last year, but that'll be interesting kind of see who is on that second Walton team that could potentially see time this season. They're obviously a very deep team. Be interested to see kind of their defensive guys as well. All right, Alexander and Chapel Hill. Then in the group B, Lanier, Kell. Watch out for Kell this season. Bryce Clavin, the best quarterbacks and baseball players in the entire country. Peyton Zachary, good luck guarding him. Kyle Vaca making his Longhorn debut. That's a great group. Same pod is going to be Mill Creek. See what Shane Throgmartin and the Hawks look like. Grayson. That'll be very interesting with Santavius Bryant taking over the head coaching role. Alpharetta, North Paulding. Then we got Roswell, Troop. We get to see Teo Todd air the ball out. One of the most electric playmakers in the state. Kennesaw Mountain, and then Hughes is in that group. Prentiss Air Noland. We'll talk about him in a bit. Absolutely huge news with him committing to Ohio State. We got Parkview, and then Bluffton out of South Carolina. Then in the indoor fields, Walton's #1 team, West Forsyth, South Gwinnett, Mays, Woodward Academy, a team that has so many athletes returning this year. It's going to be a really big storyline to see what they're able to do in 6A. And then Hillgrove coming out of that incredible region with Pebblebrook, McEachern, Harrison, and company, and Campbell. Then the final group on Wednesday, Brookwood, Collins Hill, Creekside, McEachern, Norcross, and Warner Robins. What a group. And then the final day, this one will be slightly fewer teams, but what stands out about the final day, there's more of the kind of smaller classification schools. You're going to have LaGrange, East Jackson, Campbell, Winderbarrow, Gilmer, then Fellowship Christian, Bethlehem Christian, Spencer, Charles Drew High School, and Farrell. And then there's just a couple more groups. Best Academy, Heard County, Midtown, Landmark Christian, and Dunwoody. And then Sandy Creek, Cedar Grove, Blessed Trinity, Douglas County, and South Paulding. So that is the teams that we have participating. It is going to be a really exciting 3 days. And Denmark also, I don't know if I mentioned them, so I cannot wait to see that. And we will be kind of compiling a list. It will look sort of like a press conference just to kind of lay out these storylines we talked about, the potential head-to-head matchups, and then how to catch the action, whether you just want to come out and cover it from the media, come out and see some of it for yourself, but also just to know the type of players that are going to be out there so you can follow all the action on social media. So speaking of that, let's just go straight to it with the big news about Prentiss Air Noland committing to Ohio State. What more could the guy have done in his first 3 years of high school? It has been incredible. He obviously was key in putting Hughes on the map. 2 years ago, they nearly beat Buford. They lined up for that last-second field goal, were unable to get it. but he went toe-to-toe with them before Buford went up to Class 7A. The team was just so incredible, and his consistency is just amazing. And one of the compliments that people have about him is they say he has like not only just like an intuitive personality, but he's constantly wanting to learn. He's asking questions. He's looking for all these areas to improve. He's a true student of the game, and you just see the maturity out there on the field with his decision making. He's not a guy that's going to take off and run the ball, but he will beat you to the sticks. That's what these elite quarterbacks can do. He's dropping back. He doesn't see what he wants. He's not going to turn it over. He's just going to tuck it, run, get out of bounds. And then obviously in the red zone he's been tremendous, hasn't turned it over. He gets all his different guys involved. And then the thing that I find most interesting about him is he's left-handed. He is a pure southpaw. And to see someone with his size, his arm strength, the accuracy, it just looks different when it's coming from a lefty. And, I mean, he just is able to hit all three phases of the field. He goes sideline to sideline. He can hit the intermediates. His touch on the fade routes, the corner of the end zone is outstanding, and he really does just see the whole field. So let's just see, after he committed on Saturday, some of the news. And Najee was pointing out he actually made a prediction video on Friday that he thought Prentiss was going to pick Ohio State, and then the big news came out on Saturday, which is incredible. And I think it's a great fit. All right, so I'm going to read two things. Let's start with his profile real quick on how kind of the experts describe his play, and then we'll get into more of the personal and kind of mentality that he has. All right, so this is from Andrew Evans. He is a lefty that can attack all three levels of the field. He has measured roughly 6'2". I think he's 6'3", and that's what most of them say now. He is a tall guy. If I'm 6'2", Prentiss Air Noland is definitely taller than me. 190 pounds, that's bulked up. He owns a quick, compact release that is believed to be one of the fastest, if not the fastest, in the class of 2024. And that is certainly true. He can get rid of it quickly. And you just see that all the time. I mean, teams know how good this Hughes offense is. It broke the all-time state record, but he's so fast delivering the ball that he can back shoulder it and just find that spot where only his guys can get it. He'll beat defenders to the sticks with his legs and is more creative when the pocket starts to break down, but he shouldn't be considered a run-first quarterback, as he keeps his eyes downfield while working through his progressions and will always seem to be looking for the home run. That is certainly true. There's so many times if you go back and watch film and a play breaks down, you could second guess and be like, oh man, he had that guy open deep. Anytime someone comes open, Prentiss Air Noland is hitting them. And we saw it, especially in that Gainesville game. Gainesville kind of went toe-to-toe with him early, and then the second he had opportunities before the half, it was just touchdown pass, touchdown pass, touchdown pass, and he just can hit defenses so quickly and just break the dam wide open. He came one touchdown away from tying the Georgia State record for a single season last year with his 55 touchdown passes. And that's with a backfield that had not only Justice Savage, who was the top back? Was it Wellersby? So he's throwing 55 touchdowns, but then they're also rushing for like 30 touchdowns. They're still a balanced offense, which is just amazing. This wasn't your Prince Avenue Christian air raid attack. This was a balanced one, but he just had that passing game going every single week. He also helped carry his school to the state finals the year prior. We talked about that game. He's accurate. He doesn't make mistakes. He has benefited from playing alongside plenty of Power 5 talent. He must adjust to the speed and everyday demands of big-time college football. Everyone has to. He has the tools and mechanics to not only win games on Saturdays, but be a true difference maker on offense. He could very well suit up on Sundays one day if he keeps progressing. So there you have it. He has all the gifts. He has certainly earned his high status in terms of a top quarterback in this class, and really has an opportunity to be one of the all-time greats to come out of the state of Georgia. Now let's go into this other article I want to talk about real quick. So yeah, he's a pure southpaw. That is what you need to take in mind when you watch him. There's not many elite lefty quarterbacks. And this article, it actually says the last lefty great they have seen at this level is Tua Tagovailoa. So here we go. Air Noland has questions and a notebook full of answers. The rising quarterback has become a superstar on the recruiting trail this spring. I would argue it happened before that. He has been courted by nearly every blue blood program in college football before choosing Ohio State. He visited 6 campuses last month alone and was duly greeted by an avalanche of questions from coaches seeking information about his personal life. They may not have expected Noland to break out a notebook filled with his own questions, notes about various offenses, and many pages of X's and O's he's compiled over the last year. Heck, he says you might even find a line item on the best practices to clean up a spill on the floor. I love knowing about things, and I'm very open-minded, Noland told 247 Sports. We're on Earth with only one life, and you've got to live it up, know as much as you can. You want to ask a lot of questions and get answers because you never know when you might need those answers. I think that is certainly apparent when you watch him play. He has the preparation. He studies the opponent's defense. He knows the playbook inside and out, and that's why he's able to take advantage of it. The 6'3" Noland is not just the nation's number 7 quarterback, according to 247 Sports, and perhaps the best left-handed passer to come out of high school since Tua in 2017. He also might be the most inquisitive, curious, and conscientious prospect in the country. In explaining his Ohio State commitment to 247 Sports, he pointed to a key factor on why he picked the Buckeyes. He said, they develop black quarterbacks into NFL caliber quarterbacks. So that's a big statement. He is already going into his senior year of high school. He is looking at this, how can I progress to become an NFL quarterback? Which obviously with his skill set, that's his goal, that's his aim, and he's going to have that opportunity now at a school like Ohio State. He knows the history with Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud, and he is eager to learn about practically anything. He checks in on acquaintances, praises strangers, quizzes nearly everyone he meets from afar, and keeps tabs on role models such as Aaron Rodgers and Jalen Hurts. So this is the part I wanted to get to, and then we'll move on. He said, I just love communicating. And he goes, his best friend is his former offensive coordinator, Andrico Hines. So Andrico Hines was a star quarterback at Riverdale. He ended up playing in the Arena Football League. He was the offensive coordinator last year for Hughes. They break the all-time state record for most points, and now Andrico Hines is the head coach at Berkmar. So he has gone to the Patriots. They finished 3-7 last year. They've had some tough seasons in 7A, but Prentiss Air Noland credits him, and he says, and though they're separated in age by 25 years, the bond is undeniably important to his development. This is Prentiss, what he said about Coach Hines. He said, it's like when you meet a girl or something, you just know she's the one. When I met him, I was like, that's the coach I need in my life. We gravitated to each other, and we love the heck out of each other. We always meet eye to eye, whether it's tough love or genuine. So he gives a lot of credit to Hines on kind of being his quarterback coach during this rise to one of the top prospects in the country and obviously a reigning state champ. He brought Hughes, or helped bring Hughes their first ever state title. So it was the same with his father, Prentiss Noland, who began training his son at the age of 3. They ran drills and workouts together and snapped the ball 250 times each day throughout his childhood. His father coached him in Pee Wee football. When Air turned 8, he gave up baseball to focus on football, even though he could already throw the baseball over 60 miles per hour in elementary school. I finally started doing push-ups without his father. He said, I never wanted anyone to feel like I was treating my son any differently as his coach because I was his father. It says his mom, however, cried while watching her young son perform drills alongside dad in elementary school. Why are you doing this to my baby? Audrey Gill understands now. He really pushed him hard, and here we are today. So Prentiss has been training to be an elite quarterback since he could walk, and he's had the arm strength. And I just think with his mentality, this is going to be a big year. He has a chance to get it done once again and then compete for a job immediately at Ohio State. But let's talk about what Hughes is going to look like this year, because in terms of their returning talent, I really only see a couple areas where they might need to replace some guys, and that's on the offensive line. They aren't going to have Jonathan Bo Hughley. He was obviously the #1 offensive lineman in the state, went to the University of Georgia, and then Josh Thornton, another big-time factor up front for them on the defensive line, and was a huge part of their success defensively the last 2 seasons. You have a guy on the defensive line that can force double teams, get after the quarterback, stuff the run, hold strong on the goal line, factor in on key third downs. He really did help make the rest of that defense better. So they will have to replace those 2 huge bodies, and also Jelani Thurman, who is already signed to Ohio State, and he'll, of course, reunite with Air Noland next year. I thought Jelani Thurman, I don't care what anyone says, you look at who the best tight end in the country was, Jelani Thurman was that guy. And some other tight ends might have put up better numbers, but Jelani was on that offense where everyone else is getting involved. And then he had the ability, even at his size, literally like a LeBron James out there. He had multiple 80-yard touchdowns. He was catching fade routes. He's a big-time player, and I think he's going to end up being the best tight end in that class for sure. So another huge playmaker they have to replace, but I think Hughes, just what they've been building, they have so many seniors returning that have multiple years of starting experience, and then we get to see kind of who has been behind these multi-year starters. So huge opportunity for Hughes, massive opportunity for Prentiss Air Noland to continue just preparing for that next level. I mean, he wants to be elite and has obviously been a guy. I just think it's great to see when someone has been putting in the work since they were a toddler. I mean, it has paid off 15 years later, and he's ready to live out his dream. So that's exciting news right there. What else do we have, though? The soccer state playoffs are up next. It's going to be soccer, and then after that it's lacrosse, track, tennis, and then baseball will close out the spring. One interesting storyline that I touched on a few weeks ago is the Chamblee girls soccer team. Last year, it looked like they were going to become the first DeKalb County public school to win a girls soccer state championship. They ended up having a recruiting infraction, though, and it got taken away by the GHSA. But this season, They have a new coach and a lot of the same girls, and they have dominated. They're 16-0-1. They've won 13 straight. Their only non-win was a 2-2 tie to Marist. They've outscored opponents 108-5, coming off a 10-0 win over Atlanta International, 10-0 win over Lithonia, 4-0 Roswell, 7-0 Decatur. Haven't allowed a goal since 8 games ago in a 5-0 victory. They're going to open up the playoffs on Tuesday at home against Northside Columbus. So I think Chambly is on a mission to win the state title this year, and I know that will be exciting for those girls that were involved in that last year that had the excitement of winning, but then because of the recruiting violation had it stripped away. So we'll have the final soccer rankings. They should be posted this week, and then it will be Najee's lacrosse rankings coming up. Those will be very interesting. And then I'll have my baseball rankings out on Thursday. We do not have many games left. There's been a lot of out-of-state games played over the last week with the spring break schedule. And then, of course, the region standings are really tightening up. In terms of the first round matchups, let me just go over a couple of them in boys soccer. In Class 7A, you're going to have Milton at Walton. That will be a good one. Buford at Norcross, McEachern at Archer, Denmark at Osborne. Osborne's been really good this year. North Paulding at Brookwood, Mountain View at Peachtree Ridge. In Class 6A, Johns Creek at Lanier. Lanier is the #1 seed. Lakeside DeKalb at Woodward Academy. Blessed Trinity at Gainesville. That'll be a good one. And then North Forsyth at Sprayberry. Noonan at River Ridge. A lot of exciting soccer matchups. It's going to start tomorrow with the bulk of the girls, and then the first round extends, I believe, to it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the second round, when does that start up? Yeah, second round will start the following week, same sort of deal, Tuesday and Wednesday. So that's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow at noon. Najee and I with Underrated and Overlooked. We will be covering everything high school, college, and professional news. And then I'll be back on Wednesday. We'll get some more guests, talk about the Corky Kell 7-on-7 a little more with some more details on the players, and we will have all that for you. So go to scoreatl.com, check out our YouTube page. Hope everyone has a great week.